Hey, Pittsburgh, it's Megan here. Are you trying to live a more fulfilling, peaceful, and dynamic life? Well, here's your chance to get inspired. The Art of Living founder Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar is in town for a special one-night-only event. The Art of Living is a nonprofit humanitarian organization, and they're active in 180 countries, teaching meditation, nonviolence, and service for humanity. Tap into your own sixth sense, meditation, and wisdom Thursday, June 22nd at the Omni William Penn. Tickets are available at tiny.cc/sixthsensepit. We'll put that link in our show notes.
Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, do you like driving on roads that don't fall down, knowing kids are learning in buildings that aren't full of lead? Or maybe you'd like to get money for home repairs like patching a leaky roof. Then the Pennsylvania budget process may be for you. Seriously though, as a taxpayer, you're already paying for this stuff. Host Megan Harris is with Capitol reporter Stephen Caruso of Spotlight PA to talk about how it all goes down and also what happens when everything doesn't get done on time. It's Tuesday, June 20th. I'm Mallory Falk, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about.
So we're just about 2 weeks out from the state budget deadline. I know a lot is new this year. We've got a new governor, and the Democrats have a majority in the House for the first time in ages. How is this new split changing things?
It's changing kind of everything. In the past, I think it was very easy to get used to a dynamic of Governor Tom Wolf would just ask for things from Republicans who control the General Assembly. And you'd be like, oh, he's going to try and get something that he wants. And he'd get some of it. For the most part, you know, he wouldn't get his wildest dreams. And now I think even very experienced Capitol watchers, you know, the people I talk to are just kind of like shrugging their shoulders and like, how do you think this is going to go? So everything's up in the air, and we love chaos, you know.
What do you think is the wildest part of Pennsylvania's budget process? Because it works differently here than it does in other places.
I would say the wildest part is there's the budget. There's the budget proper. There's the numbers, and the numbers are very important. I'm not downplaying, you know, that's our tax dollars being put to education and you know, Medicaid and transportation and state police.
All the things.
So I don't want to downplay that. But the wildest part, if you have to ask my personal opinion, is there are these bills that have to be passed every year along with the actual spending numbers. They're called the code bills. But all that really matters is like these bills just become a omnibus dumping ground for all the tiny little side deals that you need to convince 102 House lawmakers and 26 senators to vote for this budget, well, and get the governor's signature. So they just become this like crazy place where like there's all sorts of weird things. Like Pittsburgh has the scooters because of a code bill from, I believe, 2 years ago, where it's just like you get the language, you start looking through it, it's just full of surprises. Like, oh, Pittsburgh's going to have scooters now because they put it into a code bill saying a city of the second class can have scooters.
So, like, I mean, give me some more examples. Like, what else? Like, not necessarily from this year, but what are some weird ones? Yeah,
well, we're not going to know this year yet because all that stuff's tightly wrapped up. And though I asked everyone to leak, no one's leaking that sort of stuff yet. But I mean, in the past, we've seen the approval of the name, image, and likeness for college athletes in Pennsylvania, like the authorization for them to go get deals.
Right. I didn't know that was part of the budget process that we got that.
Yeah, no, it was just stuck in at the last minute. We saw a preemption on cities passing plastic bag bans temporarily. It wore off after, I think, a year or two, but like that was snuck into one of these code bills. Yeah, there's all sorts of things. I think one small one I never reported on entirely, but like one was like giving money to set up ATV trails in state parks. Like that was another thing that was just snuck in there. And that's what I mean by like sometimes it can be big. Like, I'm sure everyone in Pittsburgh all of a sudden noticed that they might trip over a bird scooter when they walk down into the street one day. But like
it's spin scooters here.
sorry. But also, like sometimes just tiny little things. And like sometimes you can find a bill and you could be like, oh, okay, this was a proposal from someone. Other times it's just like out of nowhere. Like, I don't know exactly who asked for this, but I'm sure someone's very happy it's in there.
So Governor Shapiro, of course, presented this first draft budget in March. What is in it? At least the stuff that we can currently tell, right?
Well, his initial budget proposal called for $44.4 billion in spending, and called for about
billion with a B.
Billion. And if I don't want to get too wonky on you guys, but I'll just say that's like the spending that's coming out of like the state's checking account, like the account that you and I imagine your main bank account, you pay for most of your expenses. The state has lots of other bank accounts. So it's not that we only are spending that much money every year, but this is all the spending that we regularly get to control. If that's an okay sidebar.
So this isn't even the fun money. This is just the normal money.
I would say, if anything, this probably is the fun money. The normal money is all the money that's just going to make sure that the roads are fixed and the, wells are capped and all sorts of weird little projects that nobody wants to think about regularly.
What little bit I know about Pennsylvania spending is that we probably have too many bank accounts.
Yeah, no, I think that's very fair. But putting that all aside, our main bank account, the general fund, so this is where all the money that you pay in sales tax and income tax and corporations pay and in taxes, all that goes in this thing called the general fund. And so Josh Shapiro proposed spending $44.4 billion, and he proposed putting about $1 billion new dollars in education, because the state has about $12 to $13 billion in sort of excess money right now, and surplus in its rainy day fund. That's built up over the last couple of years because we got all this federal money that helped replace some state revenue. And also just, the feds put a bunch of money in everyone's pocket during the pandemic, and
right.
That led to increased spending. So the state collected a lot more tax revenue than was expected. So basically, Shapiro proposed, okay, I'm going to spend some extra money on education to answer and the education funding lawsuit. And then I'm going to try and extend a few pandemic era state programs using this state money that exists. For instance, it's making sure that kids can still get breakfast at school.
For free. For the kids.
Free. Exactly. And trying to expand a state rebate for seniors and people with disabilities who for their property taxes. But otherwise, in some ways, kind of I would say a small C conservative budget. Shapiro's at least emphasized that, he was trying to use low revenue estimates. I'd push back on it a little bit because, as I mentioned with those extra bank accounts, the budget also does suggest trying to shift some money into those extra bank accounts, say for the state police, which is a very big policy proposal of his. But
yeah, because we've been paying for at least a portion of the state police with taxes on our gas for a long time.
Yes,
which we're not supposed to do. We've not been supposed to do that for a long time.
Yeah, it's been happening for a while. I don't know if we're supposed to or not. But yeah, it's been happening. I think the Shapiro administration has claimed you can find traces of it going back to the 1920s, which is hysterical to think about. The People's Model T funding was going to an old mustachioed highway cop. But
Prohibition wasn't going to secure itself,
Yeah, very true, very true. Without going on a rant about Gifford Pinchot, I'll just say that, the state, the state has been funding the state police using gas tax money that's supposed to go to fixing bridges, fixing roads, and Shapiro wants to end that. I can see how there's a political reason to do that too. Pittsburgh had a bridge fall down. Philly is looking at a massive undertaking trying to fix I-95, and instead we're paying for state police with that. It's just not a good look at this specific moment. Oh, no, exactly. And also what I think everybody realizes, it's not just a partisan issue. In fact, Senate Republicans said this issue is now a top priority after the Philly bridge collapse. But, the more money you save, the more gas tax revenue you save for transportation, the more money you can leverage to get federal funding to build more stuff, which I think everyone's excited about given the federal infrastructure law that passed. I guess that's a year ago, 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's bipartisan agreement on that. But all this to say that, like, this spending plan, everyone has basically called it reasonable. So much so, though, the House Democrats were like, when we have $12 to $13 billion in extra revenue sitting there, we should be spending that on more money for education. We should make sure that there's more money going to our poorer school district. We should make sure there's money to fix asbestos and lead in schools, or the state whole home repairs program, which gives money to homeowners to do needed repairs, replace their furnace, patch a leaky roof.
I got tickled reading your reporting on that. It just felt like the parties were playing into like very old school stereotypes of themselves. Like there's money sitting there, so the Democrats want to spend it.
It's funny. Every once in a while, things are just kind of both sidesy. And this is one. Like the basics of this budget, if I were to boil it down, is Pennsylvania has a lot of money. Projections say our future budgets don't look that good. How much do you spend right now because we have lots of needs? And how much do you hold on to so that the future isn't as painful if it does, in fact, go badly for our budget?
Hey, Pittsburgh, it's Megan here. Are you trying to live a more fulfilling, peaceful, and dynamic life? Well, here's your chance to get inspired. The Art of Living founder Gurudev Sri Sri Ravi Shankar is in town for a special one-night-only event. The Art of Living is a nonprofit humanitarian organization, and they're active in 180 countries, teaching meditation, nonviolence, and service for humanity. Tap into your own sixth sense, meditation, and wisdom Thursday, June 22nd at the Omni William Penn. Tickets are available at tiny.cc/sixthsensepit. We'll put that link in our show notes. Well, and you mentioned this very, very briefly, but we don't really have a choice with the education piece. Like there was a lengthy court case that you probably spent more of your time on than you wanted to. And now we know that our funding formula is considered unconstitutional. So we are required now to spend more money as a state on education. The question is how much and in what way.
Exactly. And that's the other portion of it. And that's kind of what I mean, too, by that, like, the state has a lot of money, but there are clearly needs, like from bridges falling down to schools with lead to, there's still lots of hungry people out there. So a lot of people who need medical care. We have an aging population. People want to reverse that. We want to attract jobs. We want to attract young people. Like there's a laundry list of things that anyone could pull out and say, like, we should spend on this. But there's a lot of competing priorities, and there's also the fact that most projections say that the state's going to have shortfalls in the future. So how do you juggle all of that? That's kind of the question of this budget. And it's not that that's a unique question. Most people will tell you Pennsylvania just has a structural deficit, that like the way our taxes are set up, we actually have a flat tax. Everyone pays the same income tax in Pennsylvania under the state constitution.
But we also have a sales tax, which a lot of people hate.
Yeah, no, and we do, and so, but all this to say that like the state just like, it's just, we have an aging population, we have a flat income tax, and a shrinking population, an aging population, shrinking, but the point is just like the numbers are hard to balance when you look at all the things we have to spend, because the state has to pay for medical care for poor people. The state those are entitlements for a reason. We are federally required to pay for a lot of programs, and those expenses are growing. And our tax base is just sort of just not growing as fast to keep up with that.
This is a problem Pittsburgh knows well. Our population actually is shrinking. That was still an accurate statement in this city. So the deadline for the budget is June 30th. Do you think everyone's going to be able to agree by then, or are we going to have some more fun bargaining chips this session?
So I'll actually say, like, I think I feel comfortable saying this now, is that it doesn't look like. In the lead up, I thought there might be more of a policy debate. I'm actually not sure how many policy bargaining chips are going to be on the table in this budget. My general impression is that, like, because of that, all the time we just spent talking about the state's finances, just trying to find the number everyone agrees to on like what are the good programs to spend money on and what shouldn't, like what we can afford, I think that's going to take up the majority, is just getting to a right number. There'll probably be some side things. I mentioned those code bills. I'm sure there'll be some fun things in there. But, it's kind of looking like there could be a very busy fall where this budget kind of builds some goodwill to like maybe make some big policy deals come September, October on the minimum wage or on energy or on, keep inserting issue that someone might care about. So all of that's to say, like, I think that the budget might come after June 30th deadline, but I don't think it'll be like a impasse where nobody can agree on anything. It'll be fashionably late. It'll be, we just took a little bit more time than we thought to get ready for the party.
Well, and my impression is that it doesn't matter if you're fashionably late in Pennsylvania. Like, you have to be like, miss the party completely before it's really an issue.
Yeah, basically June 30th is the statutory deadline, but unless the budget's delayed until August, when school districts are starting to ramp up, that's when it becomes a problem. This is also because there was a state court ruling that said that workers' paychecks are guaranteed by law. We don't have that problem that the federal government has, where like when the government shuts down, like state or national parks just close. State workers get their paycheck either way. And I've actually had some people tell me they think that was bad for the Capitol, because now it's like, there's not a ticking clock really for, as soon as it's over, you can have angry workers outside of the Capitol saying, I want a paycheck. But all that's to say, yeah, if you're a couple weeks late, the budget was late last year and nobody noticed a significant drop in their quality of life. So, you have to get to August for then schools to be like, what's going on, for domestic violence shelters to, maybe start to have bad finances, for libraries, for all of those social services that people might use and not realize how big the state government is to them.
Well, one reporter to another, what's a slightly missed deadline,
Don't tell my editors that.
Stephen Caruso reports on the Capitol for Spotlight PA. Thank you for explaining it to us.
Thank you for having me. Happy to do it.
Here's what else Pittsburgh's talking about. It's official. A verdict came down Friday in the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting trial, and I think most of us already knew the outcome. He, we're not saying his name, shot and killed 11 Jewish worshippers at a Squirrel Hill synagogue 4.5 years ago. A local jury found him guilty of all 63 federal charges, including hate crimes punishable by death. The court reconvenes June 26th, when the jury will decide what penalty this guy should receive, a death sentence or life in prison. But if the jury does decide to execute, that won't be the final word. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro said in February that he won't issue any execution warrants during his 4-year term, and that he wants to abolish the death penalty here altogether. And Taylor Swift set a crowd record for Acrisure Stadium. Between the new seats where the ketchup bottles used to be and all the floor seats they were able to cram in on the field, she had well over 73,000 people. And that was just the people who paid for tickets. Thousands more were camped out all over the North Shore, on boats in the rivers, at Point State Park, and more. The Trib in particular has some really cool crowd shots. The arena's previous attendance record was about 250 fewer people. It was set a few years ago by Garth Brooks. That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and subscribe to our Hey Pittsburgh newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you then.
Can you take vacation during budget season?